Hello and welcome to Outdoor Gear Chat. This is episode 85 and part of our Kendal Mountain Festival special. Although this time we have to fess up, we're not quite at Kendal Mountain Festival because our guest today wasn't able to attend. So we're catching up with her afterwards. But it's an absolute pleasure to have a chance to chat to Sally Orange MBE. So welcome to the podcast, Sally.
Thank you so much, Kathy. Look, yeah, I'm glad we're able to do it in the end. As you say, unfortunately, I wasn't able to make it. I just been in hospital the week before, so yeah, glad to be able to do it now.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm going to just sort of give our listeners a very quick idea of some of the things that you do. You are a retired army major. You're also an endurance runner and an adventure athlete, speaker, physio, and world record holder. And to get that world record, you've run 80 marathons, and you're the only person to run a marathon on every continent dressed as a piece of fruit. Now, I know your last name's Orange. I'm thinking there might be a link there somewhere, somehow. But why?
Yeah, yes, it is. It is. So that's exactly why I do it. In actual fact, is because first of all, it makes people smile, and then they ask why. And the honest answer is that I want to change the conversation and break the stigma associated with poor mental health. And by dressing as an apple, orange, or banana, or whatever I am, people quite often come up to me and say, "Why?" They smile, laughing, and say, why are you dressed like that?" So it's a really easy way just to start that conversation that if I was wearing a shorts and t-shirt, they wouldn't necessarily be, know that about me. And it started off because of my surname. I did the London Marathon and I thought, oh, I'll do it as an orange, and got the Guinness World Record for the fastest marathon dressed as a piece of fruit. So it was sort
Brilliant.
of after that I thought, oh, well, I'm doing different marathons all around the world. I'll get a different fruit costume, and it's sort of evolved from there. But it's had a really great impact. And the great thing is whether it's a young person or an older person, it's something that sort of resonates. And if people are uncomfortable talking about mental health, then we can always go back to the costume. But more often than not, when I've said I want to change the conversation and break the stigma, somebody will say, I know, or I have. Struggled. And so, yeah, it's opening that conversation in a slightly novel way.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, absolutely. I think so. If you've done one on every continent, clearly you've done one on Antarctica as well.
Yeah, I've actually done two marathons in Antarctica. The first
Wow.
one I dressed as a pear. So I do sometimes say that I got my nice pear out in Antarctica, and that was the Antarctic Ice Marathon. And then the second time, I was actually doing a challenge called the World Marathon Challenge, and that was 7 marathons on 7 continents in 7 consecutive days. Now,
Goodness.
I knew that was a high risk of failure for me for that.
Yeah.
And so I decided I don't think anyone does well with failure, but I particularly, struggle. And so I kind of gave myself a little buffer, and I told myself, well, if you start another challenge at the same time, so I chose to do the Antarctica Marathon on this occasion as a vegetable, because I thought if you look to try and do a marathon on every continent as a vegetable as well, if you don't get to do all 7 of the World Marathon Challenge, you've at least started, because Antarctica is the hardest and the most
Yeah.
expensive to get to. So if you were going to a frozen continent and you were going to be a vegetable, what vegetable do you think I might be?
Was it? Well, I was going to go for pea, but I don't.
Yes.
You were
I
no.
was,
Oh,
I
you was
was,
a pea. Oh,
yeah, I
brilliant.
well done. I was a pod of frozen peas. And the good thing
Fantastic.
with everybody else doing the marathon, they'd got buffs up to, over their nose, they'd got goggles. You couldn't tell who anyone was because of their race number. And there's me in this great, this green sort of pea costume. Everyone knew who I was, and so it was a great way again of being able to get the message out, and yeah, get people sort of smiling in Antarctica. So I've
Yeah.
actually done and vegetable in Antarctica.
Well, I think you must genuinely be the only person who can say that, like globally.
Well, the reason I know that I'm the only person is because Antarctica is such a small marathon. On both occasions, the organizer, I've asked, has anyone else ever done it as a piece of fruit?
Yeah.
And they've said no. And because there's one marathon there and there's only about 40 people who do it each year, that's how I know that I can have that rather unique title of being the only person in the world to have done that.
Oh, superb. Now, I know you ran the Everest Marathon, and we've obviously spoken about mental health up until this point, but the Everest Marathon you ran with a cancer diagnosis, which must have been, completely knocked you for six. But just kind of talking through that, well, I'm sure you could talk about the emotional side of that forever, but just sort of kind of focusing on the changes to kit, clothing, nutrition, and things. Did you have to take any of that into account?
Yeah, so again, I've actually done the Everest Marathon twice. Um, the first
Right.
time I did it so having taken the mental health message around the world with the World Marathon Challenge, I then wanted to take it to the top of the world and really shout about it. And so
Yeah.
the first time I did it as a lemon, um, which again, nobody else, everybody else was in the actual t-shirt and the kit, and there I was doing it as a lemon. And well, 2025, when I did it, I'd just been diagnosed with breast cancer and I still wanted to do it. So you actually trek up to Everest Base Camp before you actually start the marathon. And there was a slight different change to my kit and equipment because I trekked up to Everest Base Camp dressed as a giant boob. Um,
Of
so
course.
not necessarily the technical equipment that you were you're thinking about and talking about, but it was amazing. Some of the Nepali people that were nearby, just this one woman sort of came up and was looking at it, and I wasn't sure if it was culturally acceptable to do that, but I was assured it was. And she just came up and she ended up putting it on, and the laughter that she had in her voice, it was just amazing. And then I actually swapped into a lime costume to actually do the marathon. So I'd got the I've got the I was very privileged to be able to know from the 1 year of what to expect for the second year. So nutrition wise, it was making sure at altitude that you take on nutrition, and it was looking after yourself on the way up to
Yes.
before almost before doing the marathon. Some people didn't even get to start the marathon,
Yeah.
but it was really having to be sort of quite hygienic, and just have warm clothing. And the difference actually between the 2 years was it was really, really cold the first year. And then the second year, I'd got all my kit and equipment ready because you actually get to sleep at base camp for 2 nights. So then that's when I thought I do need some warm weather gear. But I ended up not. And also because of the cancer diagnosis, I'd been put on a drug because I asked if I could delay my surgery so that I could do the Everest Marathon. So I'm having these horrendous hot sweats
Oh,
at Everest Base Camp when everybody else is, cold.
yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, although I did have some slight different change of kit and equipment from the 1 year to the other, it just shows that you have to almost be prepared for all different types of conditions.
Yeah, and then I mean hydration obviously is absolutely critical for altitude as well. And Everest Base Camp's pretty high, isn't it? Is it
Yes,
17,000?
yeah, it's
Something
just
like that.
over 5,000.
5,000
Um,
meters, yeah.
But so hydration particularly and our guide was really, really, literally whilst getting dressed, down a
Yeah.
pint, a litre, because a litre of water, and it was just constantly having to do that. And one thing that you had to be almost very careful of is if you had what do you call it, camelback. If you have a
Oh yeah,
camelback,
yeah, yeah.
um, you don't always know exactly how much you're drinking throughout the
Yes.
day. Whereas with the Nalgene bottles, you can see how much you drink, and so it was, yes, I'd have it on the Camelback,
Yeah.
um, but the Nalgene. from a sort of physiological point of view of knowing how much you're drinking, of going, right, okay, I need to drink a bit more,
Yeah.
having that visual, I think is really key and really important. So
Yeah.
whilst they have their pros and cons, and one might be easier to get to. And actually, on the way down, so I was really quite unwell. Um, and I lost my voice during the actual marathon. And on the way back down, it was my guide that would stop me and say, drink. And
Mm.
having a buddy to just sort of say, just drink now, because they could also see how
Yeah.
much you either were or weren't drinking.
Yeah, that is a really key point, isn't it? And it doesn't matter if you're altitude or if you're just out on the hills with a mate. It's definitely, I think, certainly from a personal point of view, I'm far less likely just to carry on and think, oh, I'll just go that bit further. Oh, I'll just go that bit further. I'll be like, oh, we haven't drunk for 20 minutes. Let's stop. Just take some down. And if you have difficulty accessing it, if you are with a mate, you can get to it more easily.
Yeah, and
Um,
I think sometimes even just like I've certainly know when I've done other endurance events, I just have a timer on my watch that
yeah,
literally, as that goes off, every 20 minutes, just have a bit of,
yeah.
a sip of water. And I have another one for food. So when I've done Ironman triathlons, I'll have water every 20 minutes and food every 30 minutes. So yeah, just little reminders for
Yeah,
us.
you got to keep the battery topped up.
Exactly, exactly.
Now, I know you run to your chemo sessions and you actually even completed an ultra mid-treatment as well. We've kind of sort of talked about adapting kit and nutrition for obviously that big event in Nepal, but just on your day to day, did you have to make sort of changes there, or did anything kind of creep up and surprise you?
Yeah, so very much for chemo sessions, I'd spoke to a professor who she'd also had breast cancer, who I'd actually met at the Everest Marathon.
Right.
Serendipity moments of
Yeah.
two of us there doing it with breast cancer, or she was post
Amazing.
diagnosis, but
Yeah.
hers is incurable. And she had told me that she had ran to her chemo sessions and walked home, but she also advised to drink a pint of water before going to chemo. So on the run to chemo, I'd have my sort of running vest on. Um, I drank a pint of water before that. During chemo, I would also drink another pint because it was that thinking that it's sort of helping you flush it
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
And then I would walk home from chemo. When I also had to go I had what was called a PICC line in my arm that every week I had to go and have it flushed out. So that meant routine of every time I went to the hospital, I was running there, and I would be able to run back for that. It was only, that was a 5 mile round trip. But yeah, the fluid was really important. For that. But I sweat a lot as well. So it's sort of knowing that, if this is coming out, I've got to replenish what's going,
Yeah.
come out by putting it back in again. So yeah, hydration was really, really key. And also electrolytes as well.
Yeah.
With in between chemo as well. So it would be every 3 weeks that I would have the chemo, is just sort of taking the electrolytes just to keep the body topped up with that as well. After my first chemo session, I did a walking half marathon. That was for Cancer Research UK, with my sister. And then after, I think it was, and I was trying to do park run as well. They were my goals. That was to each run each week to try and do park run.
Yeah.
And then I did I went and did a half marathon at Chichester race course. And the reason I did that was it was 4 laps of a race course. And again, I just thought, if I'm struggling or if I can't make it, I can just, I can just stop after
Yeah.
1 lap or 2 laps. So it kind of was thought through, and I checked, with the oncologist that it was
Yeah.
okay. And yeah, then I got the opportunity to go to Portugal and do an ultra marathon with She Ultra, who actually it's an organization that is for females. and
Right.
everybody taking part. There's no cut-offs. It's a really sort of friendly, sociable, not necessarily competitive. Competitive for those who want to be, but there are walkers, trekkers, as well as runners. And it was all raising money for breast cancer and different cancer, different cancer charities. So to go over there, and do a 50K ultra after my third, it was literally after halfway of my chemo, that I was able to do that. And of course, I did it dressed as a giant boob,
Of
as well.
course.
Although somebody did say to me, "Why are you dressed as a donut?" And then I explained that, that I was actually a boob, and she was like, "Oh, that's brilliant." So fantastic event,
Oh, yeah,
to
what an
do.
experience. Yeah, and
Having
I
said
can
that,
imagine the conversations as well as you're running and running around, you drop in and out of conversations, fantastic conversations
exactly,
on ultras anyway, don't you? So yeah, that
yeah.
must have been huge.
Yeah, unfortunately, after my fourth round of chemo, I did end up in hospital for a week with sepsis, and also after my fifth, I ended up back in hospital for another week as well. And I must admit, although I walked to my chemo session that next time, I have tried running just this last couple of weeks, and I am really, really struggling with it.
Yeah.
I'm finding it really, really difficult. I have actually just spoke to a radiotherapist who was explaining that, the chemo takes so much out of your body, but also I've still got radiotherapy to come, and the
Right.
fatigue and why that is that your body. So it's having to sort of be kind to myself rather than beat myself up about thinking, "Gosh, you've got a marathon in
Yeah.
4 months in April. I'm doing the London Marathon again." So yeah, it's just being kind to yourself when your body has been through something.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And I'm just gonna, for the benefit of listeners, just explain that your definition of being kind to yourself is an 8 mile walk this morning and a sea swim this afternoon. So it's all
Well,
relative, Sally. It's all relative.
yes, I would normally run that, but I'm like, well, you're at least moving if because
Exactly.
it's the movement is medicine,
Yeah.
and very much yes, I've just finished chemo, but this is prehab now for so prehabilitation for the radiotherapy. That's I've got 15 sessions of that, so it'll be every day for 3 weeks,
Wow.
where my body will have the radiation through it to really try and make sure belt and braces kill all those cancer cells if there is any still left. The cancer was removed with surgery in June, but the chemo and the radiotherapy is just for any if anything is just sort of still, hanging around just to get rid of those unwanted nasty cells.
Yeah, so that's obviously a huge physical thing that I know everybody says journey, and it is sort of feels like a bit of a cliche, but it's obviously a very huge physical journey. How important has remaining active been to your mental health, and I mean mental and physical health are very much interlinked, aren't they? If you look at kind of Eastern medicine in particular, they haven't they treat both at the same time.
Yeah,
Has that movement and being able to adapt that movement and dealing with the mental processes around that, has that been important to your physical journey through this process, do you think?
yeah, 100%. My background as a physiotherapist, I'm kind of practicing what I preach, really. I'm telling, people movement is good, whether, yes, that might be for me an 8 mile walk. For somebody else, it might be using the stairs rather than a lift. It's all relative to each individual. And I think that's really important to to get that across, because it just would be unrealistic for some people to think, all right, I'm going to go and do this. So it's making it relevant to each individual. But I think for me, the getting out, it it isn't just the movement as such, it's the nature that you're out. I've been very fortunate to walk along the coast, and see the sea today. And I've been listening to podcasts, so I feel like I'm learning at the same time. So it's the yes, my body's getting the physical, sort of benefits of being outside, but also mentally, I'm come back and think, great, I've got to, and I've made it a real routine. And I think, I can almost be thankful to the cancer that it's given me a routine that, every Wednesday when this PICC line has had to be flushed, that means that I, run up to the hospital or walk back again. And it's a really good way, routine and sort of consistency, small, little and often is really, really helpful rather than thinking, oh, I've got to go and do a long run or, I
Yeah.
really struggle with running. But as I say, it's there going, okay, well, I can't run at the moment. Just be kind to yourself, walk because you can still walk. And whether somebody's whatever level of fitness, we can all do something. And I think it's, yeah, just making sure that we make it relevant to us and just pushing that just sort of that 1% extra each time just to give that consistency as well. So definitely it's not just the movement, it's everything else it gives you. If you're up in the Lake District, you've got the green, you've got and even the weather,
Mm.
yes, we can think, oh, it's awful, it's raining, or it's snowing, but actually if you only ever have sunshine, quite often we're there thinking, oh, I can't wait for the rain. And when if it's always raining, you want a little bit of sunshine. So it's balance. And actually, if it is raining, if you've got the right equipment on, that there's no such thing as bad weather if you've got the right equipment, and it can be really invigorating to be outside and feel the cold and the wind. So yeah, it's just I think it's your mindset of how you look at the weather. So yeah, that's my thoughts on it really.
I think it's absolutely fascinating. I completely agree with what you say, and I'm going through my own kind of menopausal journey. So I've got downgraded, if you like, from ultras and just I'm doing long distance backpacking instead because that's body's quite happy to deal with that and getting the same, if not more, in some ways. They're two very, very different activities, and it is, yeah, coming down speeding actually is quite interesting. So picking up bird song and learning, teaching myself birds and stuff like that as I'm out. And so I absolutely understand where you're coming from with headspace and things like that. But
Yeah,
um,
I very much had to use, those types of practices, the sort of the meditation, the sounds
mm,
during the Everest Marathon, because as I mentioned, I was really unwell during it.
yeah,
And I literally was telling myself, listen to the river,
mm,
listen to the birds that you can hear. Because I needed that to get me through. But there's other benefits, if you go from doing an ultra to backpacking, the different conversations that you have,
yeah.
because you're meeting different people and finding out their journeys. So I think there's always a positive in whatever movement that you're doing. Swimmers are different to runners, which are different to cyclists. Doesn't mean that one is better than the other. They're just different. So good for you with with the backpacking and unfortunately breast cancer. I mean, I had already been through the menopause, but then and I was on HRT, so I'd kind of almost just got all the symptoms sort of sorted. And
Mm.
then unfortunately with my breast cancer, I had to come off all HRT and
Oh,
given some drugs. So it's almost like a second menopause
oh,
because I'm
no
getting
way.
hot flushes and all the different side effects of the different chemo drugs. So yeah, so check your chest basically rather than having to
Yeah,
go through second menopause.
yeah. Oh
Yeah.
gosh. Oh, well, Sally, thank you so much for joining us today and taking the time. I know the Kendal Film Festival theme this year was hope, and talking to you today really has embodied that. And I really hope there's going to be loads of people listening to this and taking, well, they'll be taking away so much to help them through their own challenges. And actually, if you are listening and you are wanting to find out more, then you can log on to sallyorange.com, or you can take a look at the everyone'severest.com website to find out more about Sally and her activities. And also, if you're out and about and you are needing to change your equipment for whatever reason, then you can come online to our shops at climbers-shop.com. And there's also a huge amount of information on our sister website, the jobrownoutdooracademy.com.